What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. We are live with Warhamster Wednesday. It's Wednesday, but we're doing Tuesday stuff. Basically, Tuesday we streamed T5S2 Invitational game. I basically spent all day prepping for that game because I had to rebuild all of my overlays so that we had like the full game overlay for our live streams. So we didn't get to do normal Tuesday stuff. But we are going to be talking about competitive events and things right now. In fact, specifically, I want to talk about the Birmingham Super Major because it is the largest 11th edition event that we've seen thus far as I know. That's not a weird team event. Those are strange and different. But for like normal, regular people events, it's the biggest one. Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. I talked a little bit about the winning list, which is Sakatar, Cohorts, Thousand Suns, What a Time to Be Alive. However, all these other top lists are really cool and fun, so I'm excited to discuss them because there's a lot of really interesting things going on in these builds. So that's what's going on today. Thanks, everyone, for coming and hanging out with me. I apologize, we were a tad late on this one. I just recorded a video on the fight phase and combat movement, and I was like, this will be easy. I'll bang it out I scripted out the whole video, and then I was like, I'll bang it out in an hour or so. And then 90 minutes later, I was like, oh boy, this whole topic is very long. So that's what we're gonna be doing. Anyway, folks, let's hop in and let's talk about some frickin' lists. Let's do it. I hope the meta is 120 Skitari. I have bad news for you, chat. I don't think that's correct. The meta is only Astra Militarum. A tier Astra Militarum, chat. That's what's going on right now. For days and days. So I've done a little tiny bit of research, I guess, here. Not an immense amount. Oh, this is the top list. What? That's not what I clicked on. Weird. All right. And there's some spicy ones in here, which hopefully is going to be fun to discuss. So the first one being Theo over here with Soul Forged War Pack. It's been like a hot minute since we've seen this detachment online. It's the one where when you take a Dark Pack check, you can give yourself. It's not that you get. It's an optional thing. You get -1 to the leadership check, so it's more likely that you fail. So you oftentimes will take mortal wounds as a result, and this does tend to be kind of brutal for a lot of. If you're playing some like things like Forge Fiends, which should give themselves hazardous, they have a greater chance of taking damage from their Dark Pact, and they also deal more damage to themselves in 11th edition thanks to hazardous checks. Not ideal for big stuff like that. However, anything else, if you're a demon vehicle, you get +1 to wound or +2 attacks in melee. Importantly, this affects all of your attacks, so if you're like a Chad Mauler Fiend with Lash Tentacles, those will also get the attacks characteristic bonus, since now extra attack weapons can have their attacks characteristic modified. Pretty neat. We also have Tempting Addendum, which when you invoke your contract, so you impose the -1 leadership on yourself within 3 inches of, in this case, this Warpsmith, who's in the army right here, who's hanging out with these vehicles, you also get reroll hits. So that's also not like a single-use effect, right? He doesn't target a thing to give the reroll hits to. It affects everything that invokes within 3 inches of him. So if he's sitting in the gun line of a bunch of, Forge Friends and Venom Crawlers, and you can demonically possess vehicles of this attachment for a command point, I believe that is a stratagem. Yes, you can give yourself the demon keyword, so you get all these cool effects of like whatever predators or something. Then all of those could potentially be getting hit rerolls. So it's a little bit of I guess it's a little bit of like a pact-bound zealot sort of situation. If you are standing in front of this detachment and they have all their buffs active, they will kill you. You're dead. They shoot with full rerolls, +1 to wound, extra attacks in melee, lethal sustain, everything. Stick it all together, and just a regular dude is going to kill the god, basically. Which is cool. Also, Vastor the Archifane in here as well. He gives you +2 strengths on all your demon engines, weapons. So he makes the entire list hit really hard, which is cool. So we're bringing 2 cultist mobs for utility, 2 units of Chaos Bikers for additional utility. Looks like triple Defiler, Chad. Fair enough. Defilers are in fact demon engines, so we can give them reroll hits. And again, they're just going to kill the universe. Now, there's not a ton, I believe, in this case, that we can. We're only taking 1 detachment, and I don't think there's like much we can do to improve the maneuverability of these guys. So we are just like moving 12 inches up the battlefield. If I remember correctly, there isn't any. You can like move through terrain features, but like you're a defiler, you can already do that for the most part. There isn't a way to make yourself faster. There is a reactive move where you move towards people, so you surge move into people when they come near you, but there's no like advanced shoot or anything. So again, it's very it's like classic Chaos Space Marines where it's sort of like fair 40k, but their numbers are better than yours. If you just play a normal game of 40k with them, where you both line up and then you move and shoot and charge, you'll lose every time to Chaos Space Marines because they're going to do that, but they're going to do that better than you. We have a Red Corsair unit sitting in the center of the battlefield for some additional high OC utility, and then we have 3 Venom Crawlers as well. The Venom Crawlers actually go super hard with these buffs because they have, I mean, it's 12 shots, just baseline. They go up to strength 8 with Vashtor nearby, plus they can be +1 to wound. So they're winning at worst on 4s, but probably on 3s or 2s in most against most targets. For 110 points, turns out that's really good. With no additional requirements, all you have to do is have the characters somewhere in the vicinity, and these guys could be firing 12 strength 8 +1 to wound shots into people. That's pretty spooky. Plus, there's the chance that they go up in attack characteristic because they may actually heal people in melee too with the bonus attacks. Obviously, they don't have a ton of wounds, so they are going to be taking a lot of damage from invoking their contracts. But I do think it is a tremendous amount of damage for 330 points. I guess 340 with the triple datasheet tax, the duplication tax there. So yeah, pretty straightforward list. It's just 6 spiders, and that's about it. And then the rest is like little utility guys. And we're basically just gonna line up and we're gonna kill you. We're gonna shoot you to death. Pretty bad. Pretty you know, easy peasy. Everyone's dead. Pretty cool, Chance. So that's neat. That's a good place to start. We're already off to the races with just a bunch of funny spiders. We also have some Tyranids. We shouldn't bury the lead, I guess. Tyranids took 3rd place with Disruption, which already says this is not a normal Tyranid list because basically every Tyranid list is either take and hold or on reconnaissance, right? Disruption means it's subterranean assault. So disruption already kind of a difficult force disposition to complete in a lot of cases. And the best of times, disruption requires that you like get out of your comfort zone and you perform actions on objectives in a lot of cases. So you have to have a lot of models to be able to do that concretely. In addition to that, you're also you do lack quite a bit of maneuverability in 11th edition because there are no mechanics in Tyranids for generating more than 1 tunnel marker in the first battle round, except I think that there's like there's something weird that happens if you have like I can't remember. There was a discussion whether or not a Tyrannocyte allows you to build tunnel markers out of it if you like put a tunneling unit inside a Tyrannocyte and then bring it out of reserve. I don't think that works, but I actually don't remember exactly what the resolution is. In any case, it is difficult. It is either impossible or difficult in the extreme to build tunnel markers for yourself in 11th edition because nothing can ingress move in the first battle round unless otherwise specified. And all the Tyranid uppy downies just say you go into reserve and then you arrive normally the subsequent turn. So, unlike previous edition where you could basically deploy an entire subterranean assault, and then you could go second and you up down a bunch of Raveners, you build an entire network of tunnels, and then you push your dudes through the network of tunnels, and then you kill your opponent on the bottom of one or the top of two. You can't do that anymore. None of that works. So the entire first battle round, you have no tunnels constructed, which does make it very, very tough. You can build one tunnel off of the enhancement to arrive in from strat reserve on turn 1, and that is it. That's what you got. That said, we have it over here with these guys doing. We're making it work anyway. We're running Death Leaper. We're running a hyper adapted Ravener squad. I don't know if we're attached. I guess we're not because there's no Raveners. Oh, there is Raveners. But he didn't specify attachment, so I assume that they are by themselves, which is honestly pretty reasonable in this detachment explicitly, because it gives you you lose the up down on the hyper adapted Raveners, but you can pay for it just the normal way, so it's fine. And then you get an additional tunneler unit so that you can build more tunnels as we go on. There is a Red Terror. It's just in the middle. It's very difficult to see because there's a lot in the character selection. This is 11th edition Tyranids, by the way. Just a fucking billion characters. Everything's a fucking character. I think the list I'm playing right now, every unit besides the Lictors and my Biovore is either a character by themselves or an attached character. Just everybody's a character. So the character list is pretty dense. I mean, you also have like actual combat units inside your character selection. So the loadout does get pretty insane here. So we're running Vanguard Intellect on the hyper adapted Raveners. I have to double check exactly which one all of these are. I believe that's the one that lets you drop in turn 1. That is you. Yeah, it's Deep Strikers only. And you can deep strike in the first battle round of the game. If I zoom out here, can you see better? No, not really. That's fine. We'll figure it out. Actually, he does have a Neuro Tyrant. He might have attached here, and I just don't think he listed the attachments, which is a little bit awkward. There is a Neuro Tyrant with Synaptic Synergy, which is the Rapid Ingress for 0. So I feel like we probably have the Neuro Tyrant inside the Zoanthrope unit. There's like very little reason to include him if you're not buffing Zoanthropes with him. So I would assume that we are. So the hyper adapted Raveners may be in the Ravener squad. Them being in the Ravener squad does let them build a tunnel marker on turn 1 and then down into reserve automatically, and then immediately arrive back to build a second tunnel marker. So you can start building tunnels pretty easily with them. It is one way that you can construct the network so that you can bring things out of a specific position and then also still use the tunnel network stratagem to redeploy units somewhere else. Which is, pretty cool. We're also running Red Terror. We have a Trigon with Trigon Prime, plus a Last Reptilian Prime with Tremor Senses. So that's the redeployment. So we could basically like deploy everything, see where your opponent goes. If you have good turn 1 avenues with them, you can keep the Zoanthropes on the table, or you can put them in strat reserve, and then you can rapid ingress them for 0, in addition to the hyper adapted Ravener. So all these units can go into reserve and then all dump back down at the end of the opponent's movement phase, all in the same turn. Because Synaptic Strategy lets you duplicate rapid ingress, which is the same effect that the hyper adapted Raveners had. So all of those things can rapid ingress all at the same time. Pretty neat stuff. We have a lot of weird strategic reserve plays we can do. Although important to note, obviously, all these cool strategic reserve plays only work on Battle Round 2, which does mean that is what makes it a little difficult to actually sort of get a lot of value out of this attachment. In addition to that, we've also got a second Last Reptilian Prime. The Last Reptilian Primes are kind of like terrors in this detachment because they hit on 2s and reroll 1s. So them by themselves have a lot of redundancy on their melee attacks, and it's it's very likely that like they and their unit can 2-for-1 into most opponents, which is very nice. Plus, they give you a good onboard threat, so you're able to answer things that are in the center of the battlefield on the bottom of one when you don't have access to most of your stuff. We have a Biovore for Spore Mines, a Lictor, triple Molochs. This is where things get kind of wild. The Molochs will force... Let's pull up their datasheet real quick. They deal mortal wounds on everything within 12 when they come out of reserve. It's a little easier to apply their mortal wounds nowadays than it is than it was previously. So here you go. Because you used to have to come outside of 9 inches of people, and now you can come outside of 8, so you get like 4 extra inches on the band at which you can affect enemy units, and then it's a 33% chance to also force a battle shock check on them, and because you have 3 Molochs, it is likely you're going to get at least 1 battle shock out of all 3 of them coming in on a single unit. You can affect multiple units with this because it's not an aura effect, so it will just continuously pulse every time the Moloch deep strikes in and out. Importantly, I do not... you can't use it when you come out of tunnels, but you use the Molochs themselves to build the tunnels, and then you can come out of the tunnels with other stuff like the Zoanthropes or the Raveners and stuff like that, and they can actually charge and fight people from there. However... this doesn't seem like that much damage, right? You're like, okay, D3 mortal wounds. You have to roll for it. On a 2+, like we get D3. We might get 3. But the thing to consider is that this hits everything within that 12-inch zone. So there's like an 8-inch band away from where you have to deploy away from people. And then there becomes a 4-inch zone around that, which is where people actually get affected. This like huge sort of bullseye area. And you hit people on the edge of that, which typically means most Molochs are hitting between 2 and 3 enemy units, which likely means that they're doing somewhere between like 4 and 6 mortal wounds per turn, distributed around several enemies, plus a battle shock check. And then that battle shock check becomes a replicated battle shock check because you have to retest over and over when it comes back to your command phase. So the value from these guys is actually pretty crazy. It's only 135 points, and the other thing is that they're 14 wounds at T10. So when you throw all these guys into the center of the battlefield, you plow a bunch of stuff with mortal wounds, and suddenly, like, all their front line has been degraded. It's probably not dead, but it has suffered a bunch of damage. Now you have to come back and you have to put your attacks into Molochs who aren't really combat effective, or they're actual, punchy units that are beating you up. And so likely the Molochs will then get to recycle that effect. Either they stay on the battlefield or you pull 2 units into reserve because they're both borrowers, and then you deep strike them again, and you continuously do the same thing and continuously pulse the damage. It's pretty cool. 3 Molochs is a lot. But it is pretty sweet. Yeah. We also then have 2 Neurolictors, plus the Raveners, plus the Zoanthropes. I would be very interested to see exactly how this list worked out. I do think that there's some interesting things you can do with it. First of all, you get 6-inch deep strikes, which does make it easy if a lot of your game plan is going to be focused around 6-inch deep striking like non-combat units. So we have a Lictor double Neurolictor here. So we could potentially be bringing those guys out of reserve into positions where we can be doing actions and stuff, right? Even if your opponent's screened out a drop zone, we can build enough of a tunnel to usually take objectives. 6-inch deep strikes are almost impossible to screen off of objectives entirely, especially if you're a small individual, like independent unit. So being able to perform the disruption actions or disrupt the opponent's scoring on specific objectives, probably not that hard in this list, which does make it a little bit better for disruption explicitly. You're doing less damage than you would in like one of the more traditional subtraining assaults from 10th edition, where you're just bringing a bunch of like combat units and bring them out of reserve and then hitting people with them. However, being able to like either bring in a Moloch that then brings in a Neurolictor to do an action or something, or vice versa, we have a Moloch that blows up on people, can perform an action, and then can build a tunnel to bring a second Moloch in. The second Moloch can't then explode for mortals, but can put 4 OC onto an objective in order to potentially knock your opponent off the objective. I don't know. I think there's probably a lot of very interesting like finesse play that you can do with something like this. How good is the Moloch's melee? It's an incredible meme. It has one really weird 3 damage attack and then 16 pretty mid 1 damage attacks. It is very good at sweeping utility infantry. You want to fight guardsmen with this guy? He will fight guardsmen all day. He will kill an infinite number of guardsmen. If you want to fight anything that's not a guardsman, less good. he's gonna struggle. But it is 16 attacks, so in most cases, right, it's throwing enough dice at something that he's gonna chunk you for 3 or 4 damage, regardless of what your defensive profile is. In most cases, even if I'm wounding on 5s or whatever, I go to strength 9 with synapse if I have a guy nearby, and then I'm just handing you enough AP2 saves that eventually something goes through. Molochs are like the definition of an attrition like combatant. They don't. You never expect a Moloch to come out on the table and to kill someone in one attack, but they will nickel and dime you to the point that you end up losing to the actual Tyranid combat units, right? Like you get hit by a Moloch, you get hit by a second Moloch, that's 2d3 mortal wounds. The third one comes in, hits you for 3. Maybe a Moloch hits the charge, hits you for a bunch of little melee attacks. You've taken 4, and now 1 Tyranid Prime comes in and just pings you with the rending claw and you're dead. Basically, he just pushes you over. And that's essentially how Molochs actually deal damage. But I think in this case, they are pretty good as utility pieces. Like that's the tough part for disruption a lot of times, is that you're required to do very similar actions as very similar parameters as the other player, but yours typically tend to take more actions, and Molochs are able to perform actions while still contributing to the fight by pulsing mortal wounds out, which I think is very interesting. So, I don't know, chat. That's a cool list. That's cool as hell. I think it's pretty sweet. Put each Moloch not using each Moloch in not using other tunnel markers, make their own to nuke the opponent's army. Yeah. So the Molochs are they're the tunnel instigators, basically, because their ability doesn't trigger when you bring them out using the tunnels. It only triggers when you bring them out using Deep Strike. They're the ones that you bring in to deliver other people. Now, what are we delivering with them? It's like hyper-adaptive Raveners and like a Trigon, maybe. There's not a lot of actual damage in this list. Besides the Zoanthropes and the Raveners and the Trigon. But the Molochs are able to do enough like sort of dispersed damage that the other stuff can be that much more effective as you go in. Anyway, chat. That's Tyranids. I'm very impressed with how Tyranids have made the transition. They are pretty high performing right now, which is very interesting. But also, there's just a bunch of different kinds of Tyranids, which are all viable, and that makes me very excited. I'm playing like pure melee right now. I have a list that I've recorded and I haven't edited yet. I have a video about the list I'm currently playing. 100% melee, all Vanguard Onslaught plus Warrior Bioform, which is very fun. However, you can also play like Assimilation Swarm is not a meme. It's actually a real list. I think that there's like definitely just really, really bare bones, straightforward take and hold styles of Invasion Fleet. Tyranids are in a cool spot. I think the fact that the game has become more lethal means that Tyranids' lack of lethality is not that big of a deal anymore, and that the fact that the game is like has much more defensive technology to allow their incredibly terrible defensive profiles to survive at least a turn on the table is super helpful for them. I think it's sweet. I think it's super duper cool. Now, we also have a couple other lists that we can go through. There are some sort of basic ones, which I don't know if are that exciting. There's some Salamanders, but we've talked about Salamanders quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. Also, a bunch of like Retaliation Cadre, Advanced Acquisition Cadre, Tau Empire. Sick, dude. Fun times. But what I do want to talk about momentarily is Drukhari. Drukhari also went 5-0, did not make the top 4 cut on tiebreakers, unfortunately. Although sometimes for these larger events, people will actually they'll give up their spot in the top cut just because they can't play the third day. But in this case, we do see 5-0 Drukhari here, very exciting. Running Exhibition of Slaughter plus Sky Splinter Assault. Exhibition of Slaughter, chat, is very cool. Grab the detachment ability. This is the new 1-point detachment for Witch Cult. And it lets you advance and it gives you lethal hits against non-monster vehicle units, which is fine. But the big thing is that we can use sculpting the stage to perform actions with Witch Cult units for 1 command point. And this affects a bunch of stuff. Most notably, well, first of all, like witches that just like jump out of a venom and then go and do a thing. That's pretty big. But also Reaver jet bikes. So you can have a Reaver jet bike unit, burn a pain token, gain plus 8 inches of movement for their advance, pay a command point, and go 24 inches and complete an action somewhere, which gets crazy. I don't know. I guess we played reconnaissance with this one, which basically is like, I mean, there is some actions required for many of the reconnaissance parameters. But the other thing is that this has so many units, and each individual unit is so fast, it is almost impossible to prevent it from scoring. It's so difficult to stop this army from getting everywhere it wants to. So we have Drazar with Incubi, Lady Malice with Incubi, an Archon with a Cabalite Warrior Squad, Spiteful Raider on that guy, because we're playing Sky Splinter. That gives you +1 pain token when you destroy an enemy unit in the fight phase within range of an objective marker. That's a points filler right there. That's a lot of additional riders. But I will say the pain token economy in 11th edition significantly improved from 10th edition because every battle shock your opponent takes typically basically locks them in to take battle shocks for multiple turns in the future. So there's a greater chance that they will be able to generate you multiple pain tokens over the course of the next couple of turns, which is absolutely sick. We then have Lilith and another witch squad, a succubus and another witch squad, a raider, triple venom, plus a Hellion unit, another witch cult unit, so we can gain the benefits of the detachment ability, plus a Mandrake squad, 9 Reaver jet bikes for advance and performing actions, 3 units of Scourges, 1 Shard Carbine Scourge unit, which is actually a pretty cool little piece of technology. They don't shoot and scoot, if I remember correctly, but they do give +1 AP, I think, when they shoot you. I believe that is their ability. They do. Armor penetration characteristic is improved by 1. And you never really saw them because you weren't like that excited about, I guess, like shooting too much with your Drukhari armies besides like your explicitly high AP heavy weapon squads. But now that there is this prevalence of, first of all, like land raiders who are in the meta quite a bit, plus terminators and big things like that, being able to push your guys to AP2 and you don't have to care about old cover mechanics where they like AOC and then get R in cover and they're back to AP or saving on 2s anyway, means that having a bunch of like AP0 or AP1 base weapons +1 AP on them is very good. Plus it's a relatively quick 5 model unit with deep strike for 75 points, which is also incredibly helpful. Also, they get 6-inch deep strike for a paint token. Actually, I didn't realize that. We just talked about how good 6-inch deep strike was at stealing objectives from people, and they could just do it. That's sick. That's pretty good. Spiteful Raider is easy to do against take and hold. I guess like you have to get your Cabalite Warriors into melee though. Like I guess it's fine if it's a combat squad coming out of a venom, and most of the damage comes from the Archon. I understand it, especially because you get Lance, I guess, on the Sky Splinter Arsenal or Sky Splinter Assault, but you do have to like throw a unit into the fray, I guess, pretty far. You can like pull them into venoms at the end, I suppose. So in some cases it might be okay. I guess also against like some of the detachments that require actions on objectives will also have like a kind of a similar cadence to them. So that's cool. That's cool and fun. Let's talk about Blood Angels. I want to talk about some Bengals, because I think it's been a while since we've talked about them. For whatever reason, everyone and their mom is on Terminator squads. Now, fortunately for Blood Angels, so in this case, we're playing Rage Cursed Onslaught. RCO is all the way back in. The Blood Angels Terminators have always been had this interesting thing where like they do a lot of benefits, bonuses to high volume melee attacks. So like you have like Liberator, Assault Group, or whatever, or in this case, of course, Rage Curse Onslaught, which can give you a bunch of bonus attacks and in some cases strength characteristics or wound rerolls on those melee attacks. That's always made the Lightning Claw Terminators really interesting, because like they're already relatively high impact attacks, right? Strength 5 Twin Links AP2 is pretty good for Lightning Claw profile. But so like additional attacks on top of that is amazing. However, in conjunction or in comparison to the Thunderhammer Stormshield guys, you're just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to take that, because it's such an expensive unit. They're so easy to kill for 3 damage, like blast weapons or whatever. You just end up leaving them at home. However, now that the Lightning Claw version is significantly cheaper than the Thunderhammer version, there is a legitimate reason to start playing it. And so in this case, we're rocking a Terminator Assault Squad with, I guess, is it 2 Thunderhammers, 2 Thunderhammer Storm Shields, and then 8 pairs of Lightning Claws. In order to keep the cost significantly depressed on this unit, right? We're getting an entire Terminator brick for 300 points. Hot diggity damn. We have a Chaplain and Terminator armor, so they get a built-in +1 to wound, thanks to the Chaplain's ability. He also can unbattleshock people, which is kind of huge these days. So this unit is at the baseline coming in with 5 twin-linked attacks that will wound basically like most of the game on 4s rerolling each, but per model. That's a spooky. That's a spooky amount of damage from this unit. And you can also just like teleport homer them in, right? We can rapid ingress them, and we can run in and we can blow some people up. We had Jump Pack Chaplain with a 10-man Death Company Marine Squad, another Jump Pack Chaplain with a 10-man Death Company Marine Squad, Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, Sanguinary Guard ×2, Scouts, Storm Shadow, Thunderstrike, Double Vindicator. So we do have like kind of a baseline of a solid backline support here. If you don't need Oath of Moment to hit whatever the Terminators are going to punch, then we get rerolls with the Vindicators. We can get +1 to wound from the Thunderstrike, and you can go into a lot of heavy targets, and you can basically like trade with them with the Vindicators. The rest of the army can play rapid ingress better than almost anyone, right? You are able to threaten so far forward with the Death Company Marines. They can use hidden and they can use gone to ground to stage in forward positions, and then they can threaten your opponent's expansion objective. All the while, you're using some of these jump pack units, whether it's Death Company Marines or Sanguinary Guard, to deep strike into hidden positions and then close the distance immediately and charge. If you deep strike even into non-gone to ground hidden, a Blood Angels unit or a jump pack unit in general is threatening a 4-inch charge on their target. It's a little bit tougher with the Terminators, because the Terminators are slower and they have to close that distance a little bit, more cagely. But in some cases, you can open them up only to lines of sight from things that can't really threaten them, and then the Terminators can rapid ingress just fine and get in on people. So there's like a ton of disruption available for these armies that are able to saturate the middle of the table with jump pack units that your opponent can't realistically hide from, which I think is pretty cool. The jump pack Death Company, they don't like pump their own turn 1 threat, right? They're just boyos. They're running up unless we have I guess they reroll charges. I guess that's what they got going on for them. But they don't need Oath of Moment, for example, which means that we can afford to place Oath of Moment into whatever the Terminator squad is attacking. So we can engage with multiple of these units pretty realistically without necessarily having to babysit them with hit rerolls, and then the Sanguinary Guard just hit on 2s at a baseline. So if we're not putting the rerolls on whatever the Vindicators are shooting at, we can get the assault terminators to be able to like sort of pull their weight. 2 shields is enough to eat 3 damage attacks. Yeah. It's good for like the first allocation. The awkward part I've found with like the different wound characteristics is that you don't get to like hyper efficiently assign all the damage, because a lot of times if there is any spillover damage from different attack groups, then you're always going to have to eat hits on the Thunderhammer guys until they're dead. Even if that wouldn't be like an efficient use of your resources. So it's not like perfect. It's not perfect defense, but it does prevent you from being like getting one land speed or vengeance lined up on you and just rips half the unit in half, right? Because the storm shield is going to be able to take those, which does help quite a bit, I think, for just a couple of additional points to save probably the lives of 2 or 3 additional lightning claw terminators is, I think, pretty helpful. Cool stuff, champ. I'm interested in seeing where Blood Angels end up. I kind of feel like they play the style of game that 11th edition is trying to force you into pretty well. I would be interested to see like this infantry based like sort of knife fight is, if you're not in the hyper fast gun lines, like Retaliation Cadre or like Dark Angels, for example, or I guess to a lesser extent like Salamanders and Thousand Suns, then this like infantry knife fight definitely feels like what the game is like trying to angle people into. It definitely seems like in some cases you are either all guns that are fast and shooting people, or you're all infantry that are hiding from those guns. And the Blood Angels, I think, play that latter version pretty well. Speaking of Dark Angels, there's a little bit of Dark Angels action going on. It is the classic combination of Company of Hunters and Darkflight Pursuit, which we've talked about several times on this channel. So I don't know necessarily if it requires that much introduction. In this case, we have an Ancient with an Inner Circle Companion Squad, which is actually very interesting. A regular Ancient. I don't even remember what he does. Is he the guy that gets a 4+ fatal pain when he's in the center of the battlefield? Yes. It is, in fact, that guy. He gets +1 objective control, and while within 6 inches of the centre of the battlefield, he has a 4+ feel no pain. He himself is a 4+ feel no pain. And I guess he can join Inner Circle Companions. So he gives them their -1 to be hit, right? Because they have a character leading them. Or is it -1 to be wounded? Man, it's been a while since I've seen Inner Circle Companions on the table. Fuck, I don't even remember. They're -1 to be hit while they have a character model leading them. Oh, they're -1 to be wounded oftentimes because you play them in Wrath of the Rock, right? And they're infantry, so they gain the defensive bonus against high strength characteristic attacks. But in this case, we're just getting them for the -1 to be hit. It's only 120 points, and you get 3. Like, the Ancient's kind of a nothing burger. These guys are OC3. And you get 3 Calibanite Greatswords. So it's like 12 lethal hit attacks or 15 sustain 2. 120 points for that unit actually seems kind of baller. And then the Ancient oftentimes doesn't die, right? If the unit's like trailed, he's in the center and the unit's trailed back, it's unlikely he'll die to a single activation, right? Because like he'll tank all the big hits, and then he has a 4+ feel no pain to back that up. That's pretty neat. I kind of like that little combo there, Chad. I like that little build. There's a lot of like little tiny baby, these like little character combinations. They're these little tiny baby character units that I think there's a lot of exploration to do with those, because characters are so much more effective these days because they can retain leadership abilities, and they also typically survive a single activation. You'll very rarely lose an entire unit and their attached character in one go. Like I've been playing with a winged tier, like this like carry winged Tyranid Prime, which if I had told myself 3 months ago that I would be putting a lot of like melee emphasis on a winged Tyranid Prime, I would tell myself to like get fucked. But he's actually sick for this exactly the same reasons, right? He's relatively inexpensive, doesn't die to a single activation, retains his leadership ability all game, and then can go punch people all day. So I think there's a lot of those in different factions, which are really, really cool. A lot of people running them with librarians. I get that too. That makes sense. In Librarius Conclave, and you can give them all the the threat range buffs and stuff. That's kind of fun. We have double Eradicator Squad. We can advance and shoot these guys thanks to Company of Hunters, so that makes sense. We have double Incursor Squad, so we can get our Oath of Moment to go a little bit farther. On Infernus Marine Squad, okay, interesting. Just a little Overwatch threat where you can go cook some utility units. You can just put them with full line of sight to an objective and be like, go ahead, stand your 5 guardsmen on the objective. I will kill them. 3 land speeders, just regular old land speeders with Gatling cannons. Multi-Meltas, 3 land speeder Ventrances with Night Forged batteries. It feels like literally every time that you build Dark Angels, this is the first thing you add to your list. Basically, Night Forged battery is reroll attack count on their big silly gun, which is very strong because this unit tends to be hyper swingy. So basically making their gun, what is the average equivalent of D3 plus 3 shots rather than a flat D6 plus blast or D6 plus 1 plus blast, I think makes them one of the best little light combat vehicles for sub 150 points that the entire Space Marine faction has access to. They're good into so many different targets because they have this high strength, high AP twin linked weapon that's also blast, so they can fire it into infantry squads or heavy infantry units and be just fine. And then they can also fire it into more heavily armored targets and rely on that twin linked, which actually is sick. The heavy bolter is also not a joke of a profile these days. So getting 3 heavy bolters stapled to the unit you're already bringing for your anti-tank is actually not that bad of a take. Which is it's a weird time to be alive, where in some cases we live in fear of the regular heavy bolter profile. Ravenwing Black Knights for utility. These guys get advance and charge, so they can go steal objectives from people. A scout squad, Storm Speeder Hammer Strike with Thunder Cowl turbines. Excuse me. I think it's turn 1 deep strike on him, and then double Storm Speeder Thunder Strike as well for +1 to wound. So we can get all these guys to +1 to hit, reroll hits, +1 to wound, reroll wounds. So we're we're hitting everything in the game at worst, basically on 3s, wounding them on 4s, rerolling everything. A worst case scenario, if it's not superior, if we're not hitting on 2s and then wounding on 3s or 2s. Ooh. New Landspeeder, one of the most annoying things in 11th edition. Yeah. I don't disagree. For some reason, they're kind of hard to kill, which I think throws people for a loop. So you look at it and you're like, okay, a land speeder. I know what a land speeder is. It's 6 wounds T6, right? And you're like, no. T8, 9 wounds. Wait, hold up. And he advances and shoots and then moves again? So if I'm playing Recon, although I think this is playing Disruption, probably. Oh, it's Recon. Yeah. Okay. So if I'm playing Recon, I wish that this is, I think from just the standard 40k app export here, I wish this would just put in one fucking force disposition instead of listing all of them, because you can't pick. You pick one when you play. Of course, for casual games, you can kind of pick whatever you want. But when you play in a tournament, you pick only one. Especially because the 40k app has an API with Best Coast pairings. It should force you to pick when you upload a list of Best Coast pairings and then put only that in. This is very I'll get on my soapbox for a second here. That's very confusing. But in any case, if we're playing Reconnaissance, we can start these land speeders on the table. And if we have to get to table quarters or to get to the opponent's expansion objectives, which sometimes Reconnaissance is required to do, you can do that really easily with these guys because they move 22 inches on turn 1. Plus, they're small enough that they actually hide in expansion objectives without being hidden, right? In the staging areas on the sides without the requirement that they're hidden, which is a little difficult to do for a lot of other vehicles, because the maps are designed around the majority of your army, I think, being able to gain the hidden effect. How to whip Prime, one-shot it? Yeah. The Tyrannid Prime is, like, hilariously extremely good at killing them, though. He has 4 3-damage attacks and only needs to convert 3 with sustains. And he only needs to convert 3 wounding on 3s to kill a land speeder. So sometimes he kills them and a second unit in one activation. The Whip Tyrannid Prime is very funny against everyone else's utility because he just kills them for days in droves. He's just cutting people down. All right. That's not the only Dark Angels we have to talk about today, chat, because also an X and 1 is Jay over here running. It is Firestorm Assault Force plus Librarius Conclave. I think this is mostly funny because it's I don't know about this, chat. I think that's illegal. All right. Well, maybe just kidding. So the important thing is that you cannot, according to both ATC and WTC, you cannot attach an epic hero into a unit and then apply an enhancement to that unit. I guess I think it is potential, like, that you're supposed to be able to put the enhancement on a support character, because it's worded in a really weird and silly way. But to my knowledge, every event circuit that I have talked about this, like, ruling with has said that an epic hero in a unit prevents that unit from getting enhancements whatsoever, which is not my favorite rule of the entire edition. It's definitely one that, like, people have messed up quite a bit. And it's also very, very poorly illustrated inside the muster armies rules themselves. But it is my impression that this is an illegal combination. So you can't do that. Which is good to know. There you go, I guess. Talk to your local TOs about it, because I know it is a controversial kind of thing, but I believe that is the way that most of the event circuits that I've discussed with have been ruling that. Except for Eldar and Corsair enhancements. That's true. Corsair enhancements are explicitly not enhancements, which is very funny. Corsair enhancements are their own thing. They are applied in an entirely different set of a different step of the muster army sequence, and they can affect epic hero characters explicitly, or epic hero units explicitly. Corsair enhancements is very strange. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they're so different than everyone else's, but it is what it is. We can talk about some World Eaters, I guess. We have Oryx and World Eaters, although I think Oryx is just Green Tide. It's more Green Tide. More Green Tide, more Tactical Brigade. World Eaters is kind of fun. At X and 1. Can you use both normal and Corsair enhancements on one unit? I mean, I think so. I think that the cleanest ruling is that you just divorce Corsair enhancements from the core mechanic, the core rules for enhancements entirely. Because if Corsair enhancements are enhancements, then a bunch of them break, like, on a fundamental level, which is, not ideal. So I think right now it probably is the case that you can put both of those together, but I don't know if that will remain the same. There's a bunch of shit in the game. It's really fucked right now. They should change the name. Yeah, it should be Corsair. I don't know. Corsair. What's a good piratical name for something that makes you better? It's like it's a Corsair affect or something. Yeah, for sure. Of course, it should just be. I guess you can't say Corsair upgrade, right? Just call it Pirate's Booty. What pirate booty have you equipped today? Anyway, chance. Let's talk about this list. This is a wild list. Glorious 11th edition. Can't wait to see how World Eaters do. Opens the Warhammer Community faction pack. Closes the faction pack. We don't deserve nice things. Anyway, here's the Wonder Cornlord of Skulls. All right. So Corn Demonkin plus Brazen Engines. That's the new 1-pointer for World Eaters to buff their demon engines. It gives a battle shock aura to demon engine. Oh, hello. There we go. Start of the fight phase, you select an enemy unit engaged with a demon vehicle in your army. Enemy unit makes a battle shock roll and -1 to the battle shock roll. You cannot select the same unit for this effect more than once per phase, and you can't take it with Gortrak Onslaught. Does it give you any cool stuff? Get a surge move. It's actually kind of sweet. Trail of Destruction. You can gain mobile to go through walls. Also sweet. Apoplectic Clarity. Ignores modifiers to ballistic skill, weapon skill, hit roll, and wound rolls, which is also pretty good for all the armies that are trying to stack a bunch of hit roll modifiers, especially onto a bunch of 4+ ballistic skill World Eaters Demon Engines. It is important to be able to retain their ability to hit literally anything. A Corsair title. Oh, that's good. I like that for Corsair enhancements. Yeah. Call it a, I don't know, captainship or something. Khorne Demonkin has a little bit of synergy alongside the big demon engines because you're able to trigger summoned by slaughter off of things killed by guns. So that's pretty good. It's a little bit weird that there isn't any explicit synergy between like the demons inside the World Eaters Codex and the demon engines inside the World Eaters Codex, because a lot of this counts Blood Legion keyworded units. So it's a little funny. I guess I didn't consider this previously, but you can unlock at a low blood type point limit. You can unlock a 5+ field depending on psychic attacks. Which is actually really good against a bunch of stuff. Librarius Conclave, against Scintillating Legion, Chaos Demons, like most of the Chaos Demon builds, and have some amount of psychic attacks, right? Tyranids to a lesser extent. Also, Grey Knights. For 2 blood type points, you can just give yourself a 5+ field depending against most of their army. Looks pretty good. No notes, I guess. You can also gain blood type points off of your ranged attacks. So if you have these demon engines that are firing, ignoring modifiers, and blowing up opponents' utility units, you can. It doesn't care that you kill. Khorne cares not from which phase you destroy units, only that that you do. So gaining blood type points from those, then turning those into buffs for your late game greater demons is pretty good. So we have a Lord on Juggernaut with a blood crusher unit with Disciple of Khorne. He does increase your melee range, I believe. So he works kind of like a soul-shattering charge from a Cavalcade of Chaos that allows the Blood Crushers to actually engage people without having to 1-by-1 coherency them, or 1-by-1 melee range them. We have a Winged Demon Prince with Blade of Endless Bloodshed. It's an absolutely menacing statistical improvement in melee. It does cost 30 points, but it is +1 attack, strength, and damage characteristic to all your melee weapons. So it doesn't improve AP, I guess, so he's stuck at like awkward AP 2, but he's swinging. I think the Winged Demon Prince goes to like 10 attacks or something at 4 flat damage. Strength 11, I want to say. He actually hits pretty spooky. Blood type points needs to be not RNG. I 100% agree. Yeah. I think at the time that this detachment was released, and this is the case, I think, for a lot of World Eaters detachments, where at the time it was released, it was actually like pretty wild. And the amount of things you could do with it was pretty insane. And that was largely because you had these effects, like shit like this. That's just crazy, right? And in Index, World Eaters had an incredible, just a phenomenal Blessing of Khorne selection where they could take like advance in charge, and you could burn all of your dice on getting a bunch of super cool bonuses, and then reroll 1,000,000 dice and bring Angron back. So a lot of the design of the codex is then to scale that stuff back. This is another similar example of that, where you have this phenomenally powerful stratagem, one of the strongest stratagems in the entire game, where on release, this said, set up your unit anywhere on the battlefield wholly within 9 inches of the last destroyed model in your unit, period. You cannot use this stratagem more than once per battle round. So I think it said outside engagement range, but either way, you could set up your bloodletters outside of your opponent's engagement range, and then make automatic charges into them. You can't do that anymore. It's a 6-inch deep strike that requires you to jump through hoops. And in the context of that stratagem being as powerful as it was, depowering the Blood Tithe mechanic did make sense. But since they nerfed that, that was like 99% of the reason you played the whole detachment. This stuff is a bonus. It's a fun bonus that you get if you are pushing your opponent's shit in. Unfortunately, the fact that the Blood Tithe points are random to unlock can mean that your primary detachment actually doesn't give you, because this is 2DP, doesn't give you any benefit until like round 5, which is just silly. Just super silly. If it does proc off and you get like full power Scarbrand into somebody with Lance and Blessings of Corn, right? He's like Lance, sustain hits, reroll charges or whatever, and he just advances and charges in and, cuts a fucking Warlord Titan in half. It's sick. You're like, this is awesome. This is the greatest day of my life. But it can be kind of awkward to get to that point because you oftentimes don't have all of these abilities unlocked. Yeah, I don't know. So I think that in the context of a nerfed Summoned by Slaughter, the nerfed Blood Tithe points, so they're not even nerfed, like just like they're depowered than from what they could be. Depowered, the Blood Tithe points don't make sense. So I don't know. It is unfortunate. It's always been trash. I don't think that's been the case. I think Summoned by Slaughter was always incredibly strong. There was a reason that when that detachment came out, Art of War started playing it, chat. Like, I have to remember back in the day when that codex came out, and everything was, you could either play the one Berserker Warband list that existed, or you could play this list, which had a bunch of like really cool shit going on. And then they nerfed Summoned by Slaughter, and it was like, all right, well, now I don't care anymore. They could have like spent the time to reevaluate the detachment ability, I think, when that's the case, but they didn't do that. I'm sad personally because I fucking loved this attachment, and I played it for a while on release when it was pre-nerf, and I was like, this is sick. I'm having so much fun. And then they nerfed it, and I was like, all right, well, R.I.P. the entire World Eaters faction. We've got double Flesh Hounds for uppy downy. We've got a Defiler for shooting, so we can trigger all that stuff. I guess in this case we're playing cheap Defiler, so we do have the Ectoplasma Cannon and we do have the Excruciator Cannons, but we're bringing an Electro Scourge as well as a Bale Flamer, so it's all melee profile, which is cool. We have a Goremonger unit plus a Corn Lord of Skulls. Nice. Pretty cool. Can go through buildings with that guy. I want to look at the Corn Lord of Skulls real quick. I always get him confused because there are 2 Lord of Skulls profiles, and I wish it would stop putting me to a different tab. And I always look at the wrong one. Fortunately, the app does have this nice thing where it does tell you which codex you're looking at currently. So if we look at the World Eaters one, he does hit on 4s. We do have access to ignore modifiers, which is pretty good. He's firing at 9 inches. He gets rapid fire here. We're playing Demon Gore plus a Skull Hurler. The Skull Hurler is 2d6 plus 3 plus Blast, right? Oh, it's not Blast. Huh. That's interesting. So it's just 2d6 plus 3 shots at 14-3-3. I mean, that profile is legit, right? The problem is hitting. We got to hit with these guys, and that's where things get weird. If we get with the 9 and we're firing, I don't know, 3d6 plus 6 shots, we may be shoot enough that we can kill some people. But otherwise, it might be a little bit tough. Pretty cool stuff, Chance. There's some Leagues of Votann. I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Leagues of Votann as well as Adeptus Mechanicals. And some more Tyranids, maybe. So we can sort of hit some of the lesser reviewed factions of the game. Alex Gins over here asking for a Votann Walker, please, sir. Please, it's my only wish. Also, I would please let me select my disposition without crashing the app. I have heard that complaint several times. Running a combination of Hearthguard Covenant and Needguard Oathband. So we are generating yield points when we destroy people. Plus, we get all the cool benefits for all the Hearthguard and the Call units. We have an Oathbound Speculator Call with a 9 here Hearthguard unit, so he can gain reroll 1s to wound, pay a bunch of yield points, gain +1 to wound, which is good because these guys shoot a trillion times between the plasma and their D3 shot grenade launcher. And then I believe they also have a stratagem inside Hearthguard Covenant to gain rapid fire, I think, on those guns, if I'm remembering correctly. It is Fury of the Heart. Oh, excuse me. It is not, in fact, that. It is, in fact, sustained hits, not rapid fire. I want to say, is it a Hearthband stratagem to gain additional shots? Is that what I'm thinking of? It would be... No, I guess I have no idea what I'm talking about. Just kidding, chat. I don't know what I'm on. Oh, they're rapid fire already? Oh, okay. Well, that's what I'm thinking of, I guess. I thought they were just 2 shots. Are they 2 shots rapid fire to 3? No, they're 1 shot rapid fire to 2. Okay. I guess I have just assumed that they rapid fire was from something else. I guess I didn't know that they had to get within 12 inches to get the 2 shots to begin with. This unit's always like weird because it does feel like I don't know. They do feel underperformant in a lot of cases. Where you're like, you look at how expensive they are, right? 27 points per model, and you're like, you shoot 2 times, but it is like it's a pretty impactful 2 shots, right? You can like push it to AP 4, 2 damage, like +1 to wound. So a lot of times you're wounding like everything on 4s. Like you'll kill whatever you're shooting at in a lot of cases. We have Beric Stornbrow, Chthonian Berserk Squad attached in, so he gives them sustained hits, an Ancestral Crest Call with an Einhir Hearthguard unit, Uthar, 1 Capricus Carrier, 1 Sagittor. I wonder if the Sagittor is explicitly just for Beric and his friends, rather than splitting a unit into 2 here, because I don't think we have any other viable infantry units that can go inside the Sagittor. We have a Capricus Carrier, so we can split over a Hernkin Jaeger unit, plus double Brokir Thunderkin, 1 little unit with Graviton Blast Cannons, 1 big unit with SP Conversion Beamers. That's good for Ancestral Sentence, so you can get critical 4-ups when you're outside half range for conversion. You get lethal, sustain 2. Sometimes you see that with the +1 to wound, but I think in general, people have been pushing the Oathbound Speculator harder into the Hearthguard because you get to compound more buffs onto that 1 unit thanks to the overlapping detachment abilities, versus having to put it on an Iron Master to buff up the Brokir Thunderkin. Either way, not a bad unit in any case, of course. It's just that the sustain 2, even though we're improving criticals, the sustain 2 like loses a little bit of efficiency without any wound bonuses. We're just like rolling for 5s in a lot of cases, which is a little bit tough sometimes. But if you roll enough of them, eventually you'll kill people. We have a Hecaton Land Fortress to deliver some of this shooting. Double Hernkin Pioneers plus the Hernkin Jaeger Squad. Neat stuff. It does feel a little bit sad that I think Votann were in a really good spot to get some like really interesting 1-point detachment options that could like reinvigorate how they do list construction, because a lot of Votann lists are basically like different takes on the same combination of units, especially towards the end of 10th edition when everyone and their mom was on a Hearthband basically. However, the 1-point detachments, I think, were kind of a big miss, except for Hearthguard Covenant, who is like fucking crazy good. Hearthguard Covenant is just a 2 DP detachment, but like shrunk down into a 1-point slot, incredible. But it is a little bit sad, I think, for Votan that the other stuff wasn't a little bit more interesting. Talk about some Adeptus Mechanicals real quick here. Jack Pugh running a combination that we streamed yesterday, actually, which is Cohort Cybernetica plus Lords of the Forge. But the difference is that Jack over here is actually running Casted Robots, a man after my own heart. He's got Ving's Wafers of Dynamism, and I will level with you. I have no idea what that does. It is an enhancement from Lords of the Forge that's attached to a Cybernetica Datasmith only and gives you mobile. Nice. So we can move our castle robots through terrain features. Let's fucking go. We then have a Techno-Archaeologist in a Servitor Battleclade. Belisaria's Call, a Tech Priest Engine Seer, and Thulia Gold. Tech Priest Engine Seer has Necromechanics, so we have the damage blank on from Cohort Cybernetica. The nice thing about this attachment is like how far you can push the survivability of your stuff. You do get +2 movement, and of course that mobile keyword on the robots. However, you have all of these sick stratagems for all of the other vehicles as well, and then you also have damage blanks on top of that. So, like, importantly, you can give your guys a 6+ feel no pain, a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds, and then you can sort of push that even farther with the Tech Priest Engines here, who can give another vehicle a 5+ feel no pain. So you can have multiple layered 5+ feel no pains on different units, and then one of those gets protected by Necromechanic every turn. So if your opponent has low volume, high impact anti-tank shooting that can push through that feel no pain, we're just like dumping a heavy laser destroyer or something into them that will kill them in addition to some other shooting. You can zero out the big shot, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. You also have, I think it's this one, Ballistic Skill 3, ignore targeting. No, there's a stratagem that gives you ignore modifiers. Yeah, so ignore characteristic modifiers as well as rolls for any roll or test made excluding saving throws, which gives them, but ignore cover, right? Ignore cover entirely. Ignore like damage reduction. Ignore armor of contempt. It's usable in your command phase, so theoretically you'll already know if you're battle shocked when you use it. You can't use it on the battle shocked unit, but if you then later become battle shocked, you actually retain your OC characteristic, which is a little bit funny. So that's, I don't know, that's pretty good. It is the full bot brick, chat. Yeah, it's all 4 plus the Cybernetica Datasmith. It's a lot. it's a 370 point unit. We've got double Skitaria Rangers, an Iron Shredder Ballistari unit, plus an Onager Dune Crawler, 1 Servitor Battleclade, Sicarian Infiltrators, double Scorpius Disintegrator. It is a Cognis Autocannon Iron Shredder Ballistari unit, which is not too surprising. As well. Having seen those things in action, you just you plant ignore modifiers on them so that they can fire into basically anything at AP 2-ish if they go into Conquer Imperative, which you get really easily with Tulia Gold. And you can basically just blow up the universe, right? It's so many shots at sustained hits and potentially full hit and wound rerolls thanks to Twin Linked plus Belisaria's Call. Oh boy, do those guys slap really hard. It's a lot. I did just do a big recording before this, chat, so this might be a little bit of a quicker episode here because I'm a little bit my voice is giving out, as you might be able to hear. But I got one more list to talk about to you. It's more Tyranids because we're back to being a Tyranid channel, I think, this edition potentially. And it's a list that I laughed at in 10th edition for being fucking atrocious. I will die on the hill that I think it was laughably bad in 10th edition, and I think all the people who were naysaying me are silly geese. But it seems really good in 11th, and that is Assimilation Swarm. So this is the weird detachment where you can heal yourself with your Harvester units, which includes assimilators, which have gotten a massive glow up, both from being made way cheaper, but also you can spend those newfound points on upgrading them to actually make them not like just a fucking atrocious profile. I clicked on the actual simulator itself. So this is the detachment where we can regenerate models back to our units. The key is that we're taking a bunch of Tyrant Guard. I think that I was considering this the other day, but I do think that the attack, like it's not good. the Tyrant Guard mechanic isn't like very functional. I'm not gonna go out and say like I think Tyrant Guard are a well-designed unit. I think they're a fucking joke, but they are better than they were in 10th, partially for the reason that even though the Hive Tyrant can't go through terrain features, the Tyrant Guard can gain hidden from them, and a lot of the terrain features in the game are now light terrain features, which allows anything to go through them. So, for example, you can have a wall, and the Tyrant Guard can deploy on the front of the wall, and it's a light wall, which is a lot of the ones in 11th edition. And you just have the Hive Tyrant 2 inches behind them on the other side. The Tyrant Guard can be farther forward, but also be hidden, so the unit's still untargetable. The Hive Tyrant's fully on the other side of the wall, so nobody can see him. And then when they move, like they're in line. So you actually do gain some ground by attaching a Tyrant Guard unit to your guy. As long as you keep the Hive Tyrant himself outside of terrain, the Tyrant Guard can hide or go to ground in the terrain, and you can actually pressure the center of the battlefield with the units. I also find that it's much easier to get Hive Tyrants into melee just with how the games tend to go. There's so much stuff in the middle of the table by round 2. Hive Tyrants will usually have something to charge. Even if it's like they just throw a charge into 7, they're kind of annoying enough to kill that people, they'll send attacks to kill them, but they usually have to overextend a little bit, which is not too bad. And having Tyrant Guard that can sort of push that threat range up like an inch or two is actually a big deal. So I don't hate this unit as much anymore. Go around quite a bit. We have a Neuro Tyrant with no attachments, apparently. He's just vibing for the bonus to our Shadow in the Warp. We have double Maliceptor, double Norna Simulator with Synaptoprescience, so we get a 4+ invulnerable save. These guys are, I think, become actually really interesting because they are harvesters, so they can heal themselves and stuff around them. Plus, they hit super fucking hard. The big attacks come in at strength 13, I think, and can go to strength 15 if you pay a command point, and then the little attacks come in at strength 10, you can go to strength 12. So the assimilators can actually swing a serious boat of attacks that will kill big stuff. In addition to that, you will also, if your opponent comes back in to kill them, obviously there's a chance they don't kill them because they're a 4+ invulnerable save into a 5+ feel no pain. They can then heal themselves to, keep that wounds count topped up. But even if they do kill them, you have a stratagem when you lose a harvester that you can immediately apply +1 to wound for your whole army against that unit. So if they have their big brick that has to come in and kill the Norn Assimilator, and they kill the Norn Assimilator, you're like, thank you. You've done a fair service, and now all your other Norns and their Maliceptors and your Hive Tyrants and stuff get +1 to wound. And the Hive Tyrants with +1 to wound are like gods. They attack 1 billion times with twin lanes. The downside is a lot of times they're winning on 5s, so they need that twin length to get through high toughness values. If you give them +1 and they're winning on 4s, they have a very reasonable chance to fully convert all their attacks into you. It gets spooky. We also took a Norn Emissary as well, in addition to a Pyrovore and a Ripper Swarm, 2 additional very small little harvesters that we can regenerate the army with. I fucking love this. This is sick. I wish... And the Maliceptors do help a little bit here. I think that these lists require a very specific terrain layout to be useful. If you are going all in on Norns and stuff, they require that the terrain you're using doesn't have too much light or too much forward placed dense terrain, because it does get very physically difficult to maneuver these big bases around. I wish that the Norns had a better gun, so that you can actually interact with your opponent at long range with these armies. And I do think that were we to try to hyper optimize this list, there would be some combination of I don't know, Norns and Tyrannofexes or something that where you could actually bring big guns in. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty neat. I actually don't know what disposition he played. He didn't post. He didn't list it. He has both priority assets and taken hold. I imagine it's taken hold. But priority assets has been very high performing. But I think it's high performing for like very balanced armies. And this is certainly not mid range. This is like very much skewed to the heavy armored stuff, which is sweet. Pretty neat, chat. I don't know. I think these lists are cool. I did see a couple of them that I really liked. I don't know if like all of the Norns is my favorite, but I saw a couple that were bringing like multiple like little pyrovore squads that could basically like threaten overwatches and stuff that were really obnoxious. Like the Neuro Tyrant in here is interesting, but I don't really know what he's doing. Besides just being a goober who applies the -1 to battle shock playing once per game. But the rest of the army's all synapse besides like the one pyrovore, so you don't really need a Neuro Tyrant. I don't know. Curious. Anyway, chat. I think that's all the list I want to talk about. I'm really sleepy. I've been up and working all day, so I'm gonna take a quick siesta, I think, and then we'll be back to it. But thank you everyone for hanging out with me. Thanks for coming and watching as we talk about some fucking insane lists. This is a really cool section, part of the development of 11th edition, where no one really knows what's good, and everyone's just trying bullshit, and it's awesome. It's super fun to see. There's just so many fun list builds running around. So, cheers, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you. I will likely be live. I won't be live tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling, and then I'm going to be at Iron Weld. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, and we're going to get there in the afternoon. We're going to set up. Friday, I will be live with something. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but we'll have the whole setup there. It'll either be 40K or it'll be Breach Storm. And then Saturday, Sunday is going to be the Iron Weld GT. That's 72 players and is fully booked up. So I hope you guys come hang out with me for that, for live coverage. I will redirect you to that event. And then next week we have more invitational stuff. So it's going to be very exciting. There's a lot of content going down, which is sweet. Anyway, chat, that's it for me. Thanks everyone. Keep it classy, folks, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.